So get this, Wendy Sherman, U.S. official who led diplomacy with China and Russia, is going to retire. So who cares, right? Well, it's because Victoria Nuland is set to replace her. Now, if you don't know who that, Victoria Nuland is the person, she's horrible, okay? She's the one who foments coups. So Victoria Nuland is set to replace Wendy Sherman, claiming that after 3 decades of service, she now wants to spend more time at home, bringing her family into flaming ruin and despair. But not to worry, because her replacement actually comes from actual Nazis, not people who refuse to serve you soup kind of Nazis, but actual Nazis like in the movies. U.S. Deputy Secretary of State Wendy Sherman, the country's #2 diplomat, said on Friday she will retire at the end of June and after 3 decades. Okay, Sherman is the first woman to serve in her current role, in which she was headed up the Biden administration's diplomacy with China and led unsuccessful talks with Russia to avert. Deputy Secretary of State Wendy Sherman has resigned, and her last day in office is June 30th. Her departure has triggered near panic inside the State Department about the person many there fear will be chosen to replace her, Victoria Nuland. Nuland's hawkishness on Russia and antipathy for Vladimir Putin fits perfectly with the views of President Biden. So this woman, she's, Nuland is now the undersecretary. She's been involved in every horrible thing that we've been doing overseas. Nuland is now the Undersecretary for Political Affairs and has been described as running amok, in the words of a person with direct knowledge of the situation, among the various bureaus of the State Department, while Secretary of State Antony Blinken is on the road. If Sherman has a view about her potential successor, and she must, she's unlikely ever to share it. The Ukraine mess that Nuland made, she helped institute that coup. She did everything that's wrong in Ukraine. Victoria Nuland had a hand in. Okay, that's who she is. The Ukraine mess that Nuland made. Assistant Secretary of State Victoria Nuland engineered Ukraine's regime change without weighing the likely consequences. She was the mastermind behind the February 22, 2014 regime change in Ukraine, plotting the overthrow of the democratically elected government of President Viktor Yanukovych, while convincing the ever-gullible U.S. mainstream media that the coup wasn't really a coup, but a victory for democracy. So as if one Nazi connection were not enough, Victoria Nuland was responsible for the regime change in Ukraine and the takeover by a democratically elected government, suddenly blitzkrieged with Nazis in Ukraine. But come on, vote blue anyway, huh? Isn't it time that a woman became a full-blown fascist leader? Come on. Biden is believed by some in the American intelligence community to be convinced that his re-election prospects depend on a victory of some kind of satisfactory settlement in Ukraine. Blinken's rejection of the prospect of a ceasefire in Ukraine, voiced in his June 2nd speech in Finland, is of a piece with this thinking. Putin should rightly be condemned for his decision to tumble. Okay, but those at the top in the White House must answer for their willingness to let an obviously tense situation lead into war, when perhaps an unambiguous guarantee that Ukraine would not be permitted to join NATO could have kept the peace. So this is, by the way, this is coming from Seymour Hersh. He's the guy, he's the #1 journalist in the world. He's the one who got all the work done on that proved that the Nord Stream 2 pipeline was blown up by the United States. Ukraine's counteroffensive is going slowly in its early days, and so news of the war briefly disappeared from the front pages of the New York Times and the Post. The newspaper's fear of another Trump presidency seems to have diminished their appetite for objective reporting when it delivers bad news from the front. The bad news may keep coming if the Ukraine's military's limited air and missile power continues to be ineffective against Russia. So that crazy warmonger, Victoria Nuland, I should have had it in this segment, but there's the audio tape of her talking about who's going to be the new president of Ukraine. She's deciding. after they overthrow the democratically elected one. Who did that? The United States, CIA, and Nazis overthrew the democratically elected government in Ukraine. And who helped do that? This woman, Victoria Nuland. And she's taking over her job. So it's even worse. So now, okay, enjoy. And she's a real Nazi. Hey, come see us on tour. We'll be in Baltimore, San Francisco, Huntington Beach, Rosemont, and Chicago, Las Vegas, Salt Lake City, New York City, Pottstown, Pennsylvania, Stamford, Connecticut, and more, and St. Louis. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for all our tickets for all our shows.